Welcome in lecture 10 of this course devoted to waves and optics. So in this lecture we are going to address optical interference of thin films. So we are going to first introduce the concepts that are important for the understanding of wave interference. Then we will present the interference of electromagnetic waves, and we will see interference of thin films. So as usual, we use the free ebooks from OpenStax, and also physics from Giancoli, and fundamentals of physics from Halliday and the co-workers. So these pictures show some examples of interference from thin films that you can find in nature, for example. So this is a bubble, a soap bubble, and these colors are because of interference of light by the thin layer of the bubble. So this is the same. This is an oil spill, so an oil layer on water, for example, outside. So probably some oil lost by some car or something. This is a butterfly. So in fact the color emitted that you see here from the wings are not emission, so not light emitted by these wings, but rather some light reflected by the wings, and the blue is enhanced due to interference, constructive interference for that particular color. And of course we can also engineer some thin films for our needs, and in particular for bills it is used to avoid counterfeit bills, for example. But many kind of official documents or IDs, identity cards and so on, can use this kind of special thin films with interference in them. This is a summary of what we know about electromagnetic plane waves in vacuum. So we will need to know all of this to study interference. So okay. So the expression of the electric field, magnetic field, all the domains, space domain, time domain, and their relationship via the speed, and of course the expression of the speed, this expression also, and the energy flow. All right, so this we will have to use this later on. So the fact that the intensity is proportional to the square of the electric field. So this shows different cases of interference. So we have here two waves with the same angular frequency. Here the phase shift between the two waves is 0, so they are in phase. So you have the first wave given by this expression in red and the second in blue here. So the sum is in black. All right, so the E1 and E2 are the same in this case. So the sum will just be 2 EM and with the same cosine. Okay. So we have seen actually interference earlier in this course. So we just here remind you of these important cases. So this is constructive interference, fully constructive interference. Next, let's see this case. So here we still have E1 equal this, but E2 here is phase shifted by a phase of pi. So it's out of phase, and we see that when we add together E1 and E2, they just cancel each other, and this is destructive interference. So now we can have any case in between constructive interference and destructive interference. So if you take E1 equal this, and E2 will have a phase shift, arbitrary phase shift of phi with a E1. So if you do the sum E1 plus E2, you will find this. So you have a cos plus a cos will give you a product of cos Alright, so you will have still kx minus omega t plus something, so you will have a traveling wave, phase shifted compared to the original one E1 by phi over 2. And this is the amplitude, so it will be 2m, but with a cosine phi over 2 here. So it will not reach the maximum of 2e like it was doing in this case, but it is greater than 0, of course. Okay. Let's here introduce the concept of optical path. So we have here our two waves, so E1 and E2, and when we add both together, we get constructive interference. Right, so E2 can have a phase shift, but it has to be an integer times 2 pi, so they are in phase. So a difference in phase can be correlated to a difference in space, okay, via this relationship. Remember, this is a full cycle in space, and this is your shift in space, and this is full cycle in phase and your phase shift. So with that you can get a delta x, a difference in space. And this, so if your delta phi is equal to m2 pi, this delta x is equal to m lambda. And delta x is the distance. So we will call actually this delta x an optical path. In fact, the optical path is the distance multiplied by the index of refraction. Okay, so we will see that again later. But for now, n equal 1, so we just have delta x. So if we put, so now if we take, it could be E1, but okay, let's take E2 with m equals 0 here, so we get rid of that phase shift. Instead, we replace x by x plus delta x. So it's x plus m lambda. Let's see if this is equivalent to that. Okay. So this is a difference in optical path. Difference between compared to x. Okay. All right. So we can develop the k. So kx plus mk lambda. K is 2 pi over lambda, so we get that, the lambda disappears, and indeed you get the equivalence between this one and this one. So a difference in phase of an integer times 2 pi radian is identical to a difference in optical path of m lambda. Okay, so we can, depending on the problem, it will be easier to look at optical path rather than the phase shift. So this just depends on the problem. So it's equivalent. Alright, so now we can do the same thing for destructive interference. Let's take E1 in red, so this curve, and E2, and E2 has a phase shift of pi. Okay, so you can have m equal 1, 2, 3, etc. and even 0. So the blue curve is given by this one. So when you add them, they cancel each other, and you have fully destructive interference. So here the phase difference is given by this. So an odd number of pi. So again, we can use this equation and find the delta x associated to this. So in fact, an optical path difference associated to that phase difference. And it will be an odd number of lambda. So again, let's take this and add it to x. So we have kx plus this delta x. Okay, so we distribute the half to So it becomes m plus half here. Then we can develop the k, so kx and k lambda over 2. So again, k is 2 pi over lambda, so the lambda disappears and we get this. So which is the same as that. So indeed, the difference in phase of this to a node integer of pi is identical to a difference in optical path of a node number of lambda. Yes, a node number of lambda. Okay. So here we summarize the conditions that we can use to solve problems related to constructive or destructive interference. So constructive interference, so the condition in phase is a phase difference of m2 pi. For the optical path, we write it as delta usually, written like this. So it's a delta delta, because delta is the optical path and delta is an optical path difference, equal to m lambda. And for destructive interference, as you know, we need an odd number of pi, and this translates into an odd number of lambda for the optical path difference. So this we will use this systematically for solving interference problems. Let's see what are the other conditions for constructive or destructive interference in space. So at least we need two waves. Must be combined at a point in space at a given time. So this makes sense. We need two waves to have interference. Second, the two waves have the same frequency. Okay, this is necessary. Then fully destructive or constructive interference occurs only if the two waves have the same polarization and also intensity, magnitude. Okay, the amplitude must be the same if you want full destructive or full constructive. The two waves have the same polarization. So what does it mean? You can understand that EM waves are characterized by their polarization, by their electric field. Electric field is a vector, so it has a direction in space. Therefore, when you add two waves, you add two vectors. And as you know, even if the two vectors have the same magnitude, for example, and even if the waves are out of phase, which is a condition for destructive interference, if the two vectors are not collinear, if they are not linear pointing in the same direction, they will not produce full destructive interference. So I will maybe illustrate that with a small example. Let's say that you have wave 1 is like this. I just look at one position at one time, and let's say that we will draw another one. Let's say we have another like this. So this would be E2. Okay, so even if it is out of phase, if E2 is out of phase compared to E1, we see that it is not possible to have destructive interference, because if you do E1 plus E2, it will be this, the resultant. Okay, so you really need to have both in the same pointing in the same direction, not pointing, but along the same direction. Okay, so if you have that, it will be fully constructive interference. If you have that, it will be fully destructive interference. Okay, so next, the phase shift must be constant, and this is known as coherence. The two waves must be coherent. So the phase shift must be constant. So constant means it must stay the same as a function of time. Okay, the phase shift does not change with time. So if it does change, then you have an incoherent. So the interference is the two waves are not coherent, so they are incoherent. All right, so this makes sense because if you look at some point in space, if your phase shift always changes with time, you cannot get always the same pattern. It will change actually with time at that position in space. Okay. So for example, in this case, you have the two waves are out of phase at that position, and you have 0. But if the phase shift changes with time, it will constantly oscillate. Okay, because it will not cancel each other always. So there will be something oscillating. So it's not interference, destructive interference anymore. And same story for here. Here they are in phase. But if this is one position in space, but if at another time their phase shift will be changed, because the two waves are incoherent, then it will be different from that case, and it will just oscillate as a function of time. Okay, so how do we make some nice interference experiments? The best way, so it's very difficult to produce two independent waves, coherent waves with the same frequency, etc. So the best way actually is to use one wave and split it into two waves. So you split them so they will have the same frequency, and then trying to split them into identical amplitudes, so you can have fully destructive interference if the amplitude is the same, and introduce somehow a phase shift between them. Okay, so for example, you keep them in phase, you will have constructive interference. If you can introduce a phase shift of pi, you will have a destructive interference. So we are going to see some examples. Just before we move on, a kind of comment here. Coherence is very important also in quantum mechanics. And if you search coherence on the internet, probably one of the first results, if not the first, will be this. And this is a movie that was released, and the title is Coherence. And I watched it, actually. I liked it. It's interesting. For the suspense, it's not bad. And it is using some kind of belief that quantum mechanics can create several worlds, parallel worlds, which is in fact considered very seriously for the interpretation of quantum mechanics in science. Okay. So if you're interested, you could watch this movie. Let's see how we can introduce a phase shift between two waves. So let's say we have one source of electromagnetic plane wave given by this equation. Then let's say we can split it into two identical waves. So E1 and E2 with the same amplitude EM. So now the question, how to introduce a phase shift between the two, so that we could get E2 equal this with a phase shift. So actually we can, so the phase is this, is kx minus omega t. So if we change one of these two terms, we may be able to introduce a phase shift, right? So can we change omega t here? So we would need to change omega. Okay, but we need to have the same omega for interference. We need the same omega for the two waves. So we do not change omega. Okay, so we cannot do that if we want to study interference. So next is kx. What can we do with kx? And actually there is T also here, so but we cannot really control time between two waves. Okay, we they have to be in the same place in time and space, so this rules out that the two waves could be there at different times. Yeah, so what about changing kx? So kx is 2 pi over lambda x. So we have the lambda. The wavelengths cannot be changed also for interference. But what about x? You see that in fact k delta x is the phase shift between x and x plus delta x. Okay, so if we make that second wave travel an extra distance delta x compared to the first wave, we can introduce a phase shift, right? So in such a case, we would have E2 equal so x plus delta x, and this k delta x would be the phase shift. So of course we still need to have our two waves at the same location in space. Okay, so it's not just looking at x for one function E1 and at x plus delta x for function E2. We need to put them back together such that we are looking at the same place in space and time. So we are going to see how we do that. Alright, so let's see how we can do that. And actually this is a system that can be fabricated. This can be done with real optical elements. So we have, let's say, a wave E1, so with amplitude EM and K and omega. It's traveling along this red line. So first we have here put semi-reflective plates. So these plates can both transmit half the signal and reflect half the signal. Okay, so that's why they are called semi-reflective. They reflect a part of the signal, so in this case half, and half is transmitted. And B is the same. And here these are mirrors, so they reflect 100% of the incident wave. Here I put an axis. So this is x, let's say at point A, and here at point B you have x plus L, so this distance is L. This distance will be also L here and here. Okay, so let's see what happens. First of all, we have half transmitted, half reflected. Okay, so as written here. Then this one continues there. This one will be reflected here and goes there. It will be fully reflected here and goes there. And there it will be half again, because this is the same plate as here. It will, I know in this case it will be fully reflected. Yeah, okay, let's say it's fully reflected in this direction. All right, for simplicity. You can manage to have your plate such that it's fully reflected here. All right, so let's follow what happens here. So you see that the second wave E2 travels an extra distance compared to the red one. So in this case we can introduce a phase shift between the two, and here they merge together, so they interfere with, and they have a phase shift. So we can observe interference in this part. Alright, so let's look at the values of the electric field. So in A we have this, so E1 of A equal this. So just after transmission we have half the magnitude here. And E2, so just after reflection, here we have the same in terms of magnitude. So EM divided by 2 and the same phase. Then let's look at B, point B. So the red one, so this one has continued. So it's still the same magnitude, EM divided by 2, cosine. So here you see that now at B, compared to X, it has traveled a distance L. So compared to that position X, here we are at X plus L. Okay, so let's look now at the blue one. The blue at B, so it's the same amplitude, just after reflection, and it has traveled 1, 2, 3 L's. Okay. Okay, so now we do have two waves identical in terms of frequency and wavelengths traveling in the same space and with the same amplitude. Okay, so they interfere here. So of course you could change the values of L here to modify your phase shift. So you could tune, in fact, your interference. Here you could get constructive interference, destructive, and anything in between. Okay, so here we have simplified this setup in two ways. So the first one is it's not really possible to make a really 50% transmission reflection, and also here not a complete 100% reflection in this case. And the second is we ignore the phase shift upon reflection. So we are going to see later in this lecture, of course, that there are some phase shift upon reflections in some cases. So this is similar to what we have seen in when we studied mechanical general waves, when you had for the rope, for example, the string, when you had a phase shift of pi when your rope was attached to a fixed point, to a fixed point at a boundary. So we will see that also. But in this case, actually, if you have a phase shift of pi upon this reflection, this one, and this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, they would cancel each other anyway, because you would have pi, another pi that's 2 pi, another pi that's 3 pi, another pi that's 4 pi's, so it would just be in phase. So let's see how we can get constructive interference with this setup. So I write again here E1 and E2 at A at this position, and the E1 and E2 at B at this position, X plus L, in this axis. So here we have X plus L and here X plus 3L. So constructive interference if what? If the difference of optical paths between the two is m lambda. Okay, so here delta x is what? So it's a difference so the difference compared to x, to the value at x. So it's a distance traveled by the wave 2, let's say, minus the distance traveled by wave 1. Okay. So in this case, it is 3L minus L equal to L. Okay, so we have our condition on L, because then we can write 2L equal m lambda, and we know m has to be this, m being an integer. Okay, for destructive interference, we will get destructive interference if the optical path difference is a half a wavelength, so an odd number. Yes, so this is an even plus an odd number of half a wavelength. So again, delta x is still the same, 2L equal this, therefore you have your condition on L given by this. Alright, so before we go further, let me show you one application of interference. You have probably heard about gravitational waves and the fact that they were detected a few years ago. And actually, this led to a Nobel Prize for the contributors. So here, this is a simulation. We see here two black holes orbiting each other, and doing so, they emit a gravitational wave, as shown here. So this would be some kind of amplitude. And we are going to go through this. This is when they merge. Okay. Let's play the movie. Okay, so you have these. This is deformation of space-time. Okay, so you see in blue now it's progressing. So you have gravitational waves, and when they merge, you have a very large. You will have a very large pulse here, and this is what is detected actually on Earth, because this amplitude is too small to be detected. So we detect only this big burst here. Okay, and you see here the well, it's a bit fast. Yeah, you have seen here the yeah. So I put it again. So this is where what we detect, because there is a big burst here when they merge. And then there is just only one black hole left, and there is therefore no more gravitational wave after that. Okay, so let's watch it again. So you have your waves, a big burst, and then nothing. And actually here we will be able to see the wavefronts. So I will show you these wavefronts. The purple lines are wavefronts. Okay, so it has merged, and then we will see all these are wavefronts. You see them going away. So here is a drawing showing how gravitational waves are detected, and this is the principle is not new. It is something known as the Michelson interferometer. So in this case we have an emitter, a laser. So as seen here, you have one piece is reflected there and one piece is transmitted. So very similar to what I have shown you before. And then there are mirrors. So okay, let's follow this wave. This mirror will reflect it. Okay, and it will come back. Okay, come back, and it will be reflected here in this direction. Okay, so this is very similar to what I showed you. This is a beam splitter. So 50% goes straight, 50% is reflected. Then this piece is reflected here, that one reflected there, this one reflected goes through it, and that one is reflected. So here they interfere together. And if you change the distance there of the two mirrors, that one and the other one there, you can change the distance traveled, and therefore you can introduce a phase shift between the two. Okay, so this is a kind of more complicated, more close to the reality, and of course it's more complicated than just with a simple sketch. So this can be found, and this is taken from a presentation about LIGO. It is LIGO is the detector in the USA that detected that first gravitational wave, and this is in French. Sorry for that. Okay. So I show you this thing again. You see here clearly the reflection, and okay, and when you change the distance here, especially when a gravitational wave will go through the Earth, it will change the distances, and then you can introduce a phase shift between the two waves. So again, this is very similar to what we have seen used in the previous in my small explanation, where we had two waves and we introduced a phase shift between them. So here you see that here in this case it is out of phase. The two are out of phase, so you have okay, 0, and this okay, it oscillates between fully constructive interference and fully destructive interference. Okay, depending on the distances between the mirrors. So when you have gravitational waves, a wave going through your device, it will change slightly the distance of the mirrors, and therefore you will be able to see that and in the interferometer. So this is a sketch of what we call a Michelson interferometer. So it is similar to what they use for gravitational waves, but at a completely different scale. This is for optical waves. You have a laser. Then this is just what they call a ground glass plate to make the beam a bit bigger. Okay. So it's not important for us in the discussion. So we have here so two mirrors, that one and this one, and this beam splitter. So this is the plate that can transmit a part of the beam and reflect another part. So actually here is very detailed. It shows the effect of the thickness of the plate, and actually the thickness of the light travels through the plate also. So that introduces another phase shift. Okay, difference in optical path. So in this case they add another one here so that the effect of the plate does not affect, does not introduce a change in the optical path. So they cancel each other. So okay, I'm going to show that. So let's take that beam. So first it travels one time through the plate, then it's reflected, so half is reflected, so it travels again in that plate, then goes there, reflected by this mirror, comes back and travels again a third time in that plate, and emerge and goes to your detector. Okay, so that's for one arm. We call that an arm, and this is the other arm. Okay, so let's see. Okay, let's come back from this. Coming like this. So it travels one time through the glass, and this piece is transmitted. So half of it is transmitted. So it traveled one time through that piece of glass, transmitted. So we put that piece of glass here. So it is it passes another time through. Let's say they are identical, but without the coating, so they do not reflect the light here. So a second time through the plate, then emerge, reflected, come back, and a third time through the plate, and then go here and is reflected there. So both this one, so the ray D1 and the ray D2, both has traveled 3 times across this kind of plate. So these cancel each other. Okay, so then only, so this mirror is fixed, and we can introduce a phase shift between D1 and D2 just by moving this mirror M1. Okay, so this is a 3D view of this. Okay, and this is a system that is used, and you will probably actually operate such a interferometer in your training, because it's a typical subject in a training, in practical training. This video shows you actually a demonstration of the Michelson interferometer from MIT. So I'll let you watch this. Everything is described, so please enjoy this video. So we have just seen that we can introduce a phase shift between two waves by letting one wave travel a longer distance than the other one. In fact, they travel a different optical path. So we can also introduce a phase shift even though the waves travel the same distance in space, but if they go through some media with different indices. So like shown here. Here you have this ray goes through air here and then into a medium of index N2 and then back in air. And the next one here is in air, then in medium of index N1 and then back in air. So they travel roughly the same distance, but one have been through N2 and the other one through N1. And this can introduce a phase shift between them because their optical paths will be different. So we are going to now discuss this configuration. So we have already seen that the wavelength in the medium depends on the speed of the wave in that medium. The frequency and therefore the period does not change when you change medium. However, lambda and V changes. And we have the relationship lambda equal Vt. So this will be helpful. And V, of course, is n divided by n. So we can write the wavelength in a given medium equals Ct divided by n. V being, of course, C divided by n, and n is always greater than 1. That's why V is always lower than C. Alright, so so in vacuum, we have K equal to pi over lambda. And T, which does not change when you change medium, equals lambda divided by C. This is in vacuum. So now we are going interested in the wavelengths in a medium of index n. So we have that, and we use that equation. So E equal so some kind of amplitude cosine K in the medium n, so K index n. So this is for K in the medium x minus omega t. So T does not depend on the medium, so we can write T equal lambda. Lambda n is the lambda in the medium of index n. So lambda n divided by V. We can replace V by CO divided by n. So we have n lambda n divided by C. And we also have T equal lambda divided by C. So we can say that this equal to lambda divided by C. Therefore, we can get the wavelength in the medium as a function of the wavelength in vacuum. So it is just lambda n equal lambda divided by n. And we can therefore put back this into this equation. So Kn equal 2 pi divided by lambda n. And because lambda n equal lambda divided by n, it is equal to 2 pi divided by lambda, which is k in vacuum, multiplied by n. So it is Kn. So this k index n is k multiplied by n. And we can write our function as, in general, in a medium, we can write it like this. So instead of writing k, we write knx. So in fact, what we do here is we always keep the wavelength in vacuum. And we use n, the index of the material, in our equation. All right, so we do not have to change always the wavelength. We just keep the k as a 2 pi over n in vacuum, and just to change the n. So in a transparent material of index n, we have this function. So now the difference of phase between two positions separated by delta x in medium n will be k n delta x. Okay, we have seen before that kx delta x is a phase shift, because anyway this has a dimension of a phase. So now we have kn, therefore the phase shift now is kn delta x. All right, and the optical path difference will be just this part. Okay, you remove the k and you get an optical path. So the optical path difference will be n delta x. So now we can say that the phase shift is governed by the value of n delta x. Okay, so if we want to introduce a phase shift between two waves, we can now act either on the distance traveled or on n, or on both simultaneously. Okay, so delta is the distance traveled by one wave compared to that traveled by the other wave, and n is on the path of one of the waves. Okay, in fact, you will calculate this for one wave and the same for another wave, and you will take the difference. Okay, so we are going to see some examples. So let's come back to that example that we had before. So now we are considering ray 1 and ray 2, and they go through, so ray 1 goes through N2 here, and ray 2 through N1 and N2, and this length is L. So the question is, what is the difference in phase after the two rays emerge from this kind of system? So here we have to look at the phases just before and just after, just before they enter and just before they get out of this system. So what is the phase shift in general? It is, so you have k, so 2 pi over lambda, n delta x. This is your optical path part. So now let's calculate that for the two rays. So just we take the 0 here, because before that let's say they were in phase, and we want to see the phase shift introduced by the fact that they pass across these two systems. So phase shift for A2 when it emerges. So the phase shift of A2 for the state when it emerges compared to when it entered is just, so you calculate delta x is L, and n is N2, so it's 2 pi over lambda N2L. You do the same for A1, you have 2 pi over lambda N1L. Okay, so now we need to find the shift for ray 2 compared to ray 1, so we have to take the difference of the two, and we get, so k L N2 minus N1. So you see that here the phase shift comes only from the difference in indices and not from the distance traveled. And this is in radian, of course, so you can express that in terms of a wavelength number. So this is often used in some books. This means how many wavelengths there is in the optical path. So the optical path is just n delta x. So your optical path in this case, so the optical path difference between the two waves will just be this part. So L N2 minus N1. And if you want to know how many wavelengths you have in the optical path, you just divide by the wavelengths. Okay. And this is dimensionless. It's a number, because this is in meter in Système International, and this is also in meter, so dimensionless, and of course it is just a number of wavelengths. Alright, so now we have the tools to study thin films. So these are again these examples, so we are going to explain this phenomenon. All right, so a thin film, this is an example of a thin film. So you have, let's say, N1, this medium, then you have a film, something of index N2, and then another part with index N3. So so let's take the easy example where this is air and this is air also. So this could be just a thin film of soap, let's say, of index N2, which is greater than 1, therefore greater than N1 and N3. In this course, we are going to deal with only normal incidence. So here you see you have an incident ray. You have then a reflected ray and a transmitted ray. So this obeys Snell's law, of course. We are going to, so there is an angle theta in this drawing, but in this course, in year 1, we deal only with theta equals 0, that is normal incidence. Okay, so it's just a little bit more complicated, then you have to compute also what happens when you have an angle. But the idea anyway is well represented when you just have normal incidence. All right, so what happens? But we draw the rays like this so we can see what happens with an angle. So you have an incident ray. As you know, when you meet an interface, you can have partial reflection, partial transmission. That's okay. Then that one which is transmitted, there is here another interface. So it can be again partially reflected, partially transmitted. That one going there will meet that interface and will be again partially reflected and partially transmitted, and so on. This one will go here, partially transmitted, partially reflected, etc. So it will bounce many times, but each time this ray loses energy because some of the energy is reflected, some energy is transmitted. So in the end, you will have all one part of the energy will be reflected through all these rays, and the other part of the energy will be transmitted through all these rays. So one thing you have to be careful about here is that you may have some phase shift of pi upon reflections. So we are going to see that in the next slide. Maybe they talk about that in this caption. Okay, so anyway, we are going to talk about that. So another thing is that when we are, so at least in this course, when we look at interference, it will be enough to look at the interference between array 1 and array 2. Because anyway, all the others will have the same phase difference. Okay, so for example, let's look at this one. So incident ray or reflected. So this is ray 1. So you will have to look at incident ray just before reflection, just after reflection. You may have a phase shift of pi depending on the medium. After that, you have transmission, okay, partial transmission, reflection. So ray 2 has traveled like this. So ray 2, what is the phase shift of ray 2 from A to C? So A just before reflection, just before transmission, and C just after transmission from N2 to N1. So you see that this ray will have traveled L, because remember theta equals 0, so it will have traveled this distance L. It will be reflected here, so this may introduce a phase shift of pi or not, depending. on N1 and on N2 and N3, and then it will travel another L, so in total it will travel 2L, and then get out. So there will be an optical path difference of 2L between array 1 and array 2 already, plus the possible phase shift of pi's upon reflections. Okay, so this is the basics of interference from thin films. So if you take into account the others, they just add the same phase shift, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, this one, let's say, will have, if it continues, it will travel L, have the same reflection as here, travel another L, and then get out. So it will just add the same phase shift. So we can just look at R1 and R2. Okay. And another thing that, I suppose that in the books that we use, the Halliday and co-workers, they only look at interference by reflection. But the same thing is true for transmission. For example, you take that ray, transmit it here and go in there. So I will take maybe I will pen all this. So you have here that one continues like this, and so that one is reflected here, and it may continue like this. So you could call that R1 and this one R2, and look at the phase shift between the two, and you could have some interference by transmission. It's exactly the same problem. Alright, so now let's address this possibility of phase shift of pi. So we have already seen when we studied the general waves, and in particular the string, that you may have a phase shift of pi upon a reflection. So remember when we had a fixed boundary, you had a phase shift of pi, and you also had a phase shift of pi when you were moving from a light string, like this case, to a heavy string. Okay, so it is so here you have your pulse like this, and then it is polarized the other way. So you have a phase shift of pi upon reflection. And in this case, when your wave was traveling on a heavy string and suddenly going to a light string, you did not have any phase shift in the reflection. And what was the difference? That the heavy string, the speed of the wave is lower in a heavy string. Okay, so the same thing is going to apply for optical waves. If your wave is incident, so in let's say high speed medium like air, and then crossing into a low speed medium like glass, for example, then you will have, if it reflects off that glass, it will have a phase shift of pi, because you are reflecting off of a high index, a low speed, therefore high index medium. All right. So let's take this is the example actually. So incident medium is N1, and here you have N2 greater than N1, so the speed is lower in that medium, therefore you get a phase shift of pi upon reflection. In this case, it's the contrary, so you have N2 is lower than N1, therefore this medium N2 is faster than this one, so it is the equivalent of this one. You do not have any phase shift upon reflection. So this is the statement for optical waves. So you may have a reflection of a phase shift of either no phase shift or a phase shift of pi if you reflect off a higher index. And in terms of optical path difference, you know that we can relate a phase shift to a difference in optical path. So of course this is 0, and an optical a phase shift of pi is related to an optical path difference of lambda divided by 2. So remember, you can get this through that was the the delta phi divided by 2 pi equal delta, so delta, let's say delta divided by wavelength. Okay, and this states in terms of plain English what we have just discussed. Let's take an example. So we are going to take exactly the same thin film as in some slide ago. So this is, let's say, air. This is also air, and we have a thin film in between. Alright, so we have already described these rays. So incident ray, ray 1, and ray 2. So ray 2 goes inside the material, is reflected, and again back into medium 1. Alright, so we have here, so we need to find out the phase shift of ray 1 and for ray 2 also. So the phase shift at this location, so just before reflection and just after reflection for ray 1, therefore at point A. Okay, so the incident wave in air reflects from the medium into the wave of reflected ray, has its phase shifted by pi because n2 is greater than n1. We have a phase shift of pi. Alright, so the phase shift just of ray 1 is just pi. Okay, so now at point B, we need to look at ray 2 now. So ray 2 travels L plus L, but there is this reflection here. So what about it? On the back you have the incident wave reflex from the medium air. So now you do not have any phase shift for that reflection because N2 is greater than N3. So no phase shift. Okay, so phase shift due to reflection for R2 is 0. So now what about the okay, so we can we do not need to, but we can separate the phase shift due to reflection and the phase shift due to due to reflection here and due to optical path difference. So the phase shift between R1 and R2 due to reflection is just phi R1 minus phi R2 equals pi. So now we are going to look at the optical path difference. So what about R1? R1, it is just before reflection and just after reflection. So there is no delta x, no difference in distance. So there is no optical path difference between just before and just after reflection. However, for R2 you will have, so it will come here, so just before it is here, then it travels LL, then another L, so that's 2L, before it emerges. So that will be 2L. Okay, so in terms of phase shift, it will be 2 pi over lambda N2, because the 2 L's takes place within N2, so N2 2L, all right? So now the total phase difference, you have to add the difference due to optical path difference and the difference due to reflections. So it's phi r plus phi L. Therefore, it is this plus the pi that is there. And from that, you can look at what you would like to, for example, constructive interference or destructive interference. That we are going to do that in the next slide. Alright, so let's write again the total phase difference between R1 and R2. It is this. So in terms of optical path, a pi in phase is equivalent to a lambda over 2 for optical path difference. All right, and the optical path difference for this phase will be just n2 multiplied by 2l. All right, so let's say you would like constructive interference between ray 2 and ray 1. So because you need to have a phase shift of m2 pi, but because you already have a pi here, it means this part must be a piece of pi. Yes. So you need actually this piece to be an odd integer of pi. Okay, because you want the total to be 2 pi. All right. Or a phase, an optical path difference of half a wavelength for n2 multiplied by 2l. And for a destructive interference, you need this phi to be an odd integer of pi, and because you already have your pi here, so this should be 2 pi, m times 2 pi. Okay, m times 2 pi. And in terms of optical path, it is just this piece equal to m lambda. Let us finish by looking at this picture. So what do you see here? You see some different some fringes, let's say, and then you have some color here, and then a black film here. So what is the reason? So this could be analyzed in terms of interference. Okay, different colors have different wavelengths, and also the thickness of the film is greater here than here due to gravity. All right, so this could be understood with what we have just seen for thin film interference. So what about this black area? So obviously there is nothing reflected, so it means we have fully destructive interference in this region. So why is it so? It looks like for any color, it happens for any colors. So let's look again at our phase shift. Okay, so this is typically exactly what we have studied here, because we have air, then this film, and the other side is also air. So the phase shift obeys this equation. So here, what happens due to gravity, the thickness of that film is extremely small, and even smaller, so L is even smaller than lambda, which and it becomes very much smaller than lambda. Therefore, we can neglect this term. Okay, let's say L is so small that we can neglect this term. The phase shift is now just pi. And if you have just pi, this is a condition for destructive interference, right? For any wavelength. So this is what is happening in this area. So this is a summary, the formula summary for this first lecture devoted to optical interference. So the phase shift for a wave traveling delta x compared to a wave traveling x is given by this. So it's 2 pi over lambda of the medium delta x. And you can express this 2 pi over lambda medium in terms of the wavelengths in vacuum. So 2 pi over lambda in vacuum multiplied by n. And this is a reminder of the general phase shift. Some equations relating the phase domain here, the time domain and space domain. Constructive interference is given by these conditions. So in terms of phase shift or optical path difference, and this is for destructive interference. And don't forget the reflection. So you may or may not have a phase shift of pi depending on the index of your material.